Good morning. We're gathered here on the territory of the signatories of Treaty 7, and I also want to recognize the Métis people of Alberta who share a very deep connection with this land. I'm pleased to be joined by Tanya Hagan, who has a daughter going to grade 4 at Hillhurst School this year, as well as Rebecca Solly, whose son is going into grade 6, and daughter is starting grade 8, both at Senator Patrick Burns School. Today is the beginning of another school year for the majority of students across Alberta, and this day is often filled with a mixture of emotions. Students, staff, and families have excitement, trepidation, relief, just to name a few. Unfortunately, in Alberta, thousands of parents and educators are also feeling a lot of anxiety today. They worry for the future of Alberta's education system. The UCP has ignored funding needs, has caused teachers to leave the profession, and is forcing K-6 students to learn from a discredited curriculum. Despite the widespread condemnation of its new curriculum, the UCP government is forcing ahead with the implementation of K-3 for mathematics and English language arts and literature, and K-6 physical education and wellness. Teachers don't want to teach it. Parents like Tanya and Rebecca don't want their children subjected to it. And experts have warned us that this curriculum is going to set Alberta education back 50 years or more. This is a curriculum that was rejected by the Northwest Territories and Nunavut, ending a 40-year relationship with Alberta. The UCP must listen to the feedback of thousands of Albertans and immediately halt the implementation of their new K-6 curriculum. Students, staff, and families deserve time to catch their breath from a challenging 3 years, instead of a government forcing more change on an already stressed system. The UCP has underspent their own education budget by $1 billion just over the last 2 years. And the UCP hasn't built enough new schools in growing communities, forcing families to move to another community if they want their children to spend less than 45 minutes on the bus each way to go to their designated neighborhood school. They've allowed existing schools to be underfunded with such overcrowding in classrooms that students were forced to occupy desks in hallways. And recently, the education minister said she was, quote, thrilled to see more teachers and educational assistants will be hired in the coming school year, end quote. But the truth is, there are 1,000 fewer teachers in Alberta today than when Rachel Notley was the premier. It is unconscionable that the education minister, at a time when her government is enjoying record resource revenue, celebrates the fact that school divisions will be forced to exhaust their reserves to help pay for more teachers and support staff in the coming days. As one school superintendent said, quote, drawing from reserves for any organization is unsustainable. It is clear that this government cannot be trusted with Alberta's education system. Alberta students, staff, and families deserve to be supported and proud to have schools in their community where students will learn from high-quality curriculum that will set them up for success. So now I'll turn things over to Tanya.
Thank you, Sarah. As you heard earlier, my 9-year-old daughter is going into grade 4 this year. She's excited to be back at school, but I'm so worried for her and every other student who is being subjected to the UCP's new curriculum. This is a curriculum that is developmentally inappropriate, and I think it's going to be a disaster for our kids. I do some freelance work for an educational publisher, and I recently did something called a curriculum correlation, where you go through potential learning resources and try to find points of coincidence between the resource and what's in the curriculum. I was looking at the curriculum from kindergarten through grade 6 for both English language arts and PE and health, and it kind of blew my mind. For example, I was looking at a really excellent social emotional learning resource for points of coincidence between that resource and the new curriculum, and the results are really negligible. It was shocking to discover so little in the health curriculum that touches on social emotional learning or mental health. At an unprecedentedly stressful time in history, there is almost nothing across the primary grades that addresses stress management or coping. The only reference to stress management in the grade 5 curriculum, for example, is directly attached to positive health practices during puberty to support a healthy reproductive system. That leads to another major point, which is the complete failure on the part of the curriculum to acknowledge or consider anything beyond the absolute heteronormative. There is no scope for understanding sexual development or maturation as anything beyond basic biological development. So this effectively fails any of our children who are questioning their identity as they begin to develop. As a whole, the curriculum concedes very little to diversity. Where the Healthy Living strand of the Ontario Grade 6 health curriculum has a specific point that students learn to assess the effects of stereotypes and assumptions regarding gender roles and expectations, sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, cultural, mental health, and abilities on an individual's self-concept, social inclusion, and relationships with others, and propose appropriate ways of responding to and changing harmful assumptions and stereotypes that can lead to destructive social attitudes, including homophobia and racism, we have nothing that is equivalent. Overall, this curriculum is out of step with every other curriculum across the country. It is going to put us at a disadvantage as a province in terms of what kind of educational standards we are setting and upholding. Nobody wants this curriculum in our schools, and nonetheless, here I am today on the first day of school, sharing my fear and concern for my daughters and all Alberta students' future because of the backwards, developmentally inappropriate curriculum that they will begin learning from today.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Tanya. Now we'll turn things over to Rebecca.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm here to echo Sarah and Tanya's concerns for our children's future. First of all, forcing schools to implement this horrible curriculum is an insult to all the Albertans who were invited to share their thoughts and concerns about this curriculum. We were told that the government wanted our feedback, and I know that there has been significant negative feedback, but there has been no real substantial changes from it. The foundation from the curriculum is faulty, and no amount of minor changes here or there are going to fix it. No matter how much negative feedback there is, the government is still steamrolling ahead with a curriculum that nobody wants. I've personally sent in my feedback and concerns with specific questions and just got generic form letters back. Nothing was addressed, nothing was answered. I also found it fascinating that the UCP chose, during a pandemic when teachers and staff were already stretched to the max, to ask even more out of them in the form of piloting this new curriculum that they didn't support. The UCP basically chose to wage a war with people who were already battling unprecedented challenges as they work to ensure that our kids got the best education they possibly could under such stressful circumstances. I don't appreciate the UCP's spin on the financial health of the education system. They highlighted an increase in schools' budgets over the next 3 years while simultaneously ignoring the expanding student population, not to mention the inflation increases. The budgets have been essentially cut. Overall, I'm very concerned about the erosion of the quality of the education that Alberta children will receive with this curriculum. I know that right now they are currently working on the high school level curriculum, and if they're going through with the same egregiously flawed process that they used with the K-6 curriculum, then all Albertans should be very concerned, not just parents who have students in the line of fire. As an Albertan, maybe the doctor that I'm going to be seeing when I'm 70 is going through the elementary school system right now, where they're just being taught how to memorize facts and not how to actually think, how to do critical thinking or creative problem solving. And this is a problem for all of us. This will affect us all in the long term. The UCP needs to start listening to the experts, to the parents, to the concerned citizens who have provided their feedback, and stop the implementation of this inadequate new curriculum. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you both so much. Alberta students deserve to learn from a modern, inclusive curriculum that will prepare them for higher learning in the world of work, as well as how to be engaged citizens. And those responsible for implementing new curriculum must be supported and given input in its development and the necessary time to prepare to teach it. That hasn't happened. This is why an NDP government led by Rachel Notley will halt the implementation of the K-6 rewrite and will work to build a curriculum that Albertans can all be proud of. There is hope for the future. There is an election coming, and should the NDP form the next government, we will fund public education. We will build public schools, and we will put teachers in those classrooms. Thank you very much, and we're happy to take your questions.
Okay, we'll start with questions in person. I guess just sort of on a practical note, you've all expressed, the problems with this curriculum, we should scrap it. But if we were, school starts today, so if we were going to scrap this today, what's your plan? What would we do? Would we go back to the old curriculum while we came up with a new one?
Yeah, thanks very much. And I think that we all know that teachers are going to do their best with what they've got. Most of them haven't been given professional development on the new curriculum, and I'm sure they're doing their best to try to figure out how to navigate this with the expertise and the skills that they've had over the past, and try to do the least amount of harm and try to do some good. So I think that we need to really reset the relationship that the current government has really broken with teachers. They tore up the memorandum of understanding, the agreement that teachers would be part of writing the curriculum. They've really pushed them away from being partners in this. So I think we'd have to trust the best judgment of teachers as we navigate through the rest of this school year. But rest assured, if Rachel Notley's premier before the next school year, we won't be moving forward with a curriculum that's being forced on classrooms now. We'll have an opportunity to do a bit of a reset, to work with what was developed in the lead up to 2019, which teachers were an integrated part, academics were, employers were, parents were, and we will make sure that we take the feedback that's been gathered over the last 3.5 years and that we can create something that we're all proud of.
Can I ask one more? I just want to ask your thoughts on class sizes. I think in Calgary we've got 4 brand new schools opening. Is it enough to keep the numbers at a reasonable level for teachers and for students themselves?
Yeah, I'll answer, and then if either of you want to comment on your own family experiences, you're certainly welcome. But what I'll say is that I've been talking to a lot of teachers who've talked about the complexity in the classroom. We have many refugee students showing up this year in larger numbers than we've seen often in the past. And we also have larger class sizes because the government hasn't kept up with population growth or inflation. And we're seeing really it's not going to set kids up for success. And at the same time, we know that they've suffered significantly in their loss of learning over the last 3 years. This is the year we need the most resources to make up for those gaps that kids have had to experience at no fault of their own, no fault of their parents. The government hasn't adequately funded classrooms, and we don't have enough teachers or educational assistants. The fact that we have 1,000 fewer teachers in Alberta classrooms now than we did before the pandemic when Rachel Notley was the premier, I think speaks to the fact that this government hasn't made classroom conditions, learning conditions a priority at all. Did either of you want to talk about your own kids' classrooms, if you want to?
Certainly, I can. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. When my daughter started kindergarten under the UCP government, she was in a class of 18 children. When the UCP came in during that school year, they cut most of their support staff. So many of the wonderful support staff who were there to help children who had complicated needs were gone. When my daughter re-entered the school system after hub learning during the pandemic last September, she was in a class of 21 children. This year, she's in a class of 28 children. And the question I want to raise is how teachers are going to be able to manage with such scarce resources and such large class sizes when we know that there are many children with complex needs who need extra attention. It's not fair to the children, and it's not fair to the teachers.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll go to questions on the line. Just a reminder to use the raise hand function to be put in the queue. Okay, I don't see any questions online. Any other questions in person? Okay.
Great.
With no more questions, that's all for today. Thanks.
Thanks. Thank you both.
So much for watching, and to learn more, check out albertasfuture.ca.